Okay, welcome back everybody. So this week's going to be fun. This is going to be Bell Bottom Blues by Derek and the Dominos with the great guitar mastery of Eric Clapton from 1970. So we're going to talk about the parts that are going on in here. We're going to cover the main sort of rhythm guitar that's going on throughout here, and then we're going to talk about the guitar solo and the little noodling parts that are happening throughout. So with guitar, we got you covered. So this is Eric moving squarely into his Fender era, his Strat era, Clapton, moving out of the 60s from his Gibson era Clapton, which I love. But this has some great tones as well, and we'll talk about that here as well. Okay, so if this is the kind of thing you like and you haven't done so already, I invite you to jump down and click subscribe and ring the bell. The bell will let you know when I drop new content, which I do every single week. All my lessons have chapters in them, so you can jump right to the part of the lesson that you want to see and bypass what you don't. And if you're looking for other ways to support the channel, I appreciate that. There's thanks, which is a button just like throwing a tip in the tip jar. Or you can join my Patreon, where you have chord charts and tabs for all the lessons that I do here on YouTube, like this one. All the links are in the description, so check it out. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So we are going to talk about the rhythm, what I'm going to call the rhythm guitar part here. In terms of tone, this sounds very much like a Strat to me. So got my Strat, and I think a lot of the sound that you're hearing is the number 2 position. If you've got a 5-blade, the modern, back in the day, Strats only had 3, by the way, if you didn't know that. It was just front, middle, and back. And you could sort of squeeze that switch, that 3-way switch, sort of in between to get the positions 2 and 4 that we know today. But I think it even sounds different than that. Like if you put a 5-blade switch on a 1962 Strat, for example, I think that actually sounds different than when you have those things balanced in there. I could be imagining it, but so yeah, so I'm the number 2 position, so living between the bridge and the middle. And I'm going to go clean on this for the rhythm tone. I'm running into my Vox Cambridge Reverb, which is a 110 solid state amp. I love it. It's an old 67, but I think it comes close. Don't know exactly what he used in terms of equipment. I've seen a lot of discussion on boards that he used like a little vibro champ, or a champ, something that's got like a little 8-inch speaker that has that real trebly sound to it. Maybe that's the case. But yeah, and anything about my gear that I'm running today, all that's going to be in the description below, by the way, if you want to check that out. So the song opens just with a little arpeggiated around the C chord. And before I get into actually that detail, let me just talk about the chords, all right? The chords themselves that'll happen. So on the verse, your chords are going to be a C, an E, an A minor, then a C with a B with a G in it on the bottom, F, and G. And then the turnaround is very interesting. The turnaround is F major 7, and then it's a G7, but he doesn't really play the low G note. And I've looked at a lot of live footage of him, and he always has some variation of this type of a G7, where the bottom is actually the B note. And he doesn't play that 6th string. Which I thought was interesting, because he always leads back into when he's playing this live for years. So he's favoring that. He loves that. So maybe he did that on the record, but that's what we're going to go with, okay? But we'll get to that in just a minute. All right, so your first chord is a C. And he starts with that little pickup on your 2nd fret, right? And then he hammers onto that 2nd fret of the D string. But you're making a C chord, is what you're doing. And on this one time in the very beginning, he goes up to the second string and picks backwards. All the other times he doesn't do that, but that first one, now you're going to make your E. A minor, and you're just playing strings 5, 4, and 3. Notice how it's just picking the root, going forward and coming back. Now our C with our G on the bottom. F. You're going to slide up to your G. He does that little thing. That plays with that a little bit. And then our turnaround. And the bass, it's that note, right? So if you wanted to grab that note with your thumb, maybe you could. If you wanted to be full-throated about that. So one more time. As my guitar is already out of tune. So that's the verse, and it just repeats that again. Now when he plays that C, that first C, it's... and then everything else is the same. Right? That first time we did. And all the other times it's... and so on. All right? So that's the verse structure. After you go through that twice, you're going to, now your turnaround, sorry, that you do that on the first one. Your second turnaround, you're going to go, you're going to come up to an A major, and we're into our next part. I'm going to call this our bridge, let's just say, or our pre-chorus. All right, so the chords here are A, played anywhere you like, but I think it's best that you're just doing a bar chord here because you come up to it. And the next chord is an E, but it has a G sharp or an A flat on it. Right, so you listen to the sort of walking bass that's happening. It's... right, but the guitar chord itself is an E, but you put that fourth fret on the sixth string on there. So A, F minor, F sharp minor, D to E, and I've seen it play D to an E7. I've even seen a D7 to an E. Any variations of those, I think, will sound fine. One more. Okay. And the strum is more like... into our, I guess it's the chorus. Okay, I'll show you a couple ways you can play this. So your chords, where you're going, it's an A. I'll show in a couple different positions how you can do this. Then it's an A major 7. You're going to just drop your A note on your third string down a fret. Right? So A major 7. A dominant 7, D, E. And I've seen Eric play the D this way live, and up to here to do your E, right? You know, so any way you want to do your D and E. So let's carry that through. Again. Okay, and then you're back to your standard turnaround. Right? So that's method one that you can do it. Another way that I think is pretty is to play your A up here. And then your D wherever you want to play it. And E or E or E there, but just another way that you can do that. All of that sounds great. Or all of those will work. Right? So those are all the rhythm guitar parts. They just sort of repeat. The verse sections go twice. Do your turnaround, and then you're going to go into your pre-chorus. Right? So those are all the verse sections. So let's talk about the lead guitars that are going on. And we're going to jump right back to the beginning of the song where we first hear these leads. Now, mostly through the song, what you're going to hear with lead guitars is there's at least two guitars going on at the same time that are playing lead, that are overdubbed over and beyond that rhythm part that we learned. So generally speaking, there's on the main sort of hook riff, there's a higher harmony and a lower harmony. And the higher harmony seems to always play the same thing. The lower harmony seems to not always play the same thing every single time, but it works every time. So here's what I'm talking about. And you'll notice that the tone for the lead guitar is a little more gritty. And I'm actually I'm using my fuzz. Settings will be down below, but I'm using my fuzz. It seems to get it, and it sounds more like that sort of vibro champ turned all the way up to 10 with this amp that I got going on. Okay, again on my number 2 position. Okay, so let's talk about that first riff, right? So after where I'm talking about that, this comes in during that turnaround, right? So here's the main higher harmony. All right, slowly one more time. So 13 on 1, 13 on 2, 11 on 2. And I think it's a pull-off. Then you're going to bend up on 12 on the 3rd string. Grab 10 on the 1st. And then land on 12 on the 2nd. Right? So again, the chords that are happening behind that is the F major 7 to the G7. And you're ending on that G7. That's part of this G7. Right? All right. So that's the high harmony. The lower harmony is doing variants every time off of this sort of scale. You're familiar with, think of an F chord, and you're probably familiar with the major pentatonic, where you put this part on the bottom. Right there. So it's just doing different variations off of that bend, landing on either the F or the G. And that's what's happening underneath the main riff. Right? So this one's always doing something like, or, they're all variations of that. If you listen to every single one, they're all just a little bit different. So anyway, have fun with that one. It'll be one of those, and it'll all work under that main riff, right? So yeah, so that's the main riff. So they repeat that during those F to F major 7 turnarounds. And during the verses now, you're going to have little leads that kick in, which sounds like, tone-wise, it sounds like it's the middle pickup on the Strat. But it's... This is all, think of it either as A minor pentatonic or C major pentatonic, however you want to think about it. It's all around there in that space. So, context over the A minor. Right? And then you get how that falls in, right? Whenever it goes to that A minor, you can play any one of those pentatonic licks of that. There's another one that he does that are hammer-ons. And then you'll hear another lead guitar sort of finish that off. So that's what I was saying earlier. There's always two guitars that are, overdubbed against each other, and they decided to keep things in with both of them, and it sounds great. But that one again is, it's just off of that pentatonic shape right there. Right? Okay, so let's move to the guitar solo now. So the guitar solo is going to come in and it's going to solo over a verse formation. So Eric's going to kick off the solo with that same pickup line that you hear down here. But he's going to do it up here. So that's part one. So again, think of that as, I think of it as an A minor slash C major is what's happening on here. And I've got my pick turned this way because what's going to happen is like this. So I'm sort of hitting it at an angle because this solo uses a pinch harmonic, which we'll get to in a minute. But I turn my pick that way just to get ready for it. Right, so that, whoops. And then here's how you end it. And here's part two. And here's where we start getting into our pinch harmonics. And if you're not familiar with pinch harmonics, I can't get a zoom in here close enough really to do it justice. But what you're doing is you're scraping your pick across the string and you're hitting it with the meat of your thumb right like immediately after it, lightly. And it also matters where on the string that you're doing this, because depending on the guitar and the pickups that you have live at the moment, it's going to matter where you hit it. And for me, what seems to make the tone is when I'm hitting it pretty much in between the neck pickup and the middle pickup when I'm doing that. Like that. If I do it over here, it sounds different. But then it comes back strong again. But let's just talk about the notes. So that's sort of without the pinch harmonics. So when you throw those in, and I don't do it very well, but that's what he does. And that's how he gets that sound. It's a little better. All right, now we're back to this part. Now there's a great lead part that happens during the I don't want to fade away part. If that's a pre-chorus, I don't know what that is. That one. And it's a very defined part, and there's two lead guitars that are at least doing it together, which sounds like they're sort of double tracking each other. But there's a couple places that you can play it, but I find that it's easiest to do it from this position here. So think of your A position here at the 9th fret. And again, the part that we're going to be playing over is when we're going from our A to our A major 7 and our A dominant 7, right? So what happens is you're going to take this D-shaped A chord up here, and you're going to play strings 1 and 2. You're going to bounce back and forth with the notes that are moving there. So it'll look like this. Right? Just like we're doing. Right? But you're just playing those two. I'm going to turn down to make it clearer. Now your next chord is a D to an E. And there's a very defined part that happens in there that I never really sort of picked out. And here's what's happening. So after you get to that A7, you're going to come up here. Here's a D, right? He plays that part of a D, and then he drops down to this part of a D. So he goes from here, and then he does this climb based on E, because then we're in an E, back to our A, and while that E's playing, he plays back to your A. So all together. And on that climb, he's not necessarily every single time picking both notes cleanly. But that's what he's doing with his hand. Maybe he doesn't pick all the notes. When he gets up here, you can hear that one pretty clearly. But the reason that lick works is because if you think of an A, which this is all built around an A, many of you know this little lick. If this is your root chord, and that takes many different shapes. You can hear, right? It's all part of that. But he's just starting lower and he's just still in the scale. If you were to keep going, you know, right? He's just playing around with that. So he's just bouncing between this E position and he's leading into the A from that D shape. Last time, do it again. Back to it again. But that's that part. So one guitar's playing it there. It sounds like another guitar's got a different pickup setting. But that's the part. And you do that until you come back. Right? So now there's other leads that happen during the verses. And it's just all pieces that are happening off of that C major pentatonic or the A minor pentatonic at that position, if you want to think of it. And then there's a bunch where he does up here, you know, where he's playing it off of that A minor position here, but he sneaks in like the major notes. Do you wanna see me crumble? You know, stuff like that. But that's where all that's happening. So play around there. Or up here. That's where you do all those leads. Okay, so let's pull that fadeaway lead part again. Let's do that one more time. Doing that main lead one more time, pulling it together. There you go. So that is Bell Bottom Blues by Derek and the Dominos with Eric Clapton on guitar. I hope you learned something new today. If you like what you saw and you haven't done so yet, please click subscribe and ring the bell. The bell will let you know every time I drop new content, which I do every week. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this, and if there's another song you want me to take on and do a lesson similar, let me know what that is too. And until next week, take care, everybody.